The active Russian army before the start of full-scale invasion of Ukraine consisted of more than 700,000 military personnel. However, initially not everyone was involved on the front line. Serious losses in killed and wounded, and this, according to various estimates, can be up to 300,000, forced the command to announce a partial mobilization in Russia.
There is a monstrous shortage of manpower in the Russian army. Mobilization will in no way improve its plight on the front line, because it is impossible to fight in a modern war with untrained people. Pavel Luzin, military expert, in an interview with Important Stories.
Russia is acutely lacking not only people but also equipment. According to estimates of the Important Stories publication, the Russian army lost up to 67% of all its combat-ready tanks and up to 27% of armored vehicles. The Russian army abandoned a huge amount of equipment and ammunition during the retreat from the Kharkiv region. And now these combat vehicles and artillery systems are successfully used by the armed forces of Ukraine, and the Kremlin is forced to turn to Iran and North Korea for weapons.
We've seen that in Russia, perhaps out of desperation, turning to countries like Iran to provide the wares that it is unable to produce or to acquire through other means. Some of this is a reflection of the export controls, of the sanctions, of the economic measures that we've imposed on Russia. The fact is that they don't have the ability to organically produce, to import the key inputs that they need, and so they're turning to Iran. Ned Price, US State Department spokesperson.
In recent weeks, Russia has switched to using air-launched cruise missiles. The missiles themselves were produced in the 80s and were designed for a nuclear charge. Now the Russians are forced to replace nuclear warheads with ballast of similar weight in order to maintain the flight path, according to the British Ministry of Defense.
Such an inert system will still produce some damage through the missile's kinetic energy and any unspent fuel. It is unlikely to achieve reliable effects against intended targets. Whatever Russia's intent, this improvisation highlights the level of depletion in Russia's stock of long-range missiles. From official report, British Ministry of Defense.
It will take more than 10 years for factories to restore the equipment lost during the 9 months of war in Ukraine, and we are not talking about new modern equipment.
The truth is that Moscow does not have the ultra-modern weapons that it displays in military parades. This is just a sham. They are not able to produce it, so they turn to foreign countries. Vadim Skibitsky, deputy head of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with La Repubblica.
Russia is also running out of Soviet stocks of artillery shells, and by the end of the year, the Russian army will experience shell hunger, military experts say. Defense enterprises are currently unable to produce new ones at a sufficient level. They are cut off from the supply of Western equipment, spare parts and materials. All these factors lead to the fact that Russia, one by one, is losing the previously occupied territories of Ukraine. Reported by Roman Smoler, Natalia Husak, UATV News.